Hey everyone, I'm Nick and welcome to the Cave of Collectibles. Today I will do a quick review on The Mandalorian Chapter 4, Sanctuary. Now, like I have said in my previous videos, if you haven't seen The Mandalorian yet, go away, watch it so I don't spoil anything for you, then come back and watch this review. Or if you're like me and you don't really care about spoilers, then just stay and keep watching. Otherwise, I hope you all enjoy it. If you haven't seen my other reviews for The Mandalorian, they'll be linked at the end of the episode, so be sure to give them a watch. This episode was another great episode. Each episode keeps going from strength to strength and building upon the previous episode. In this episode, we see the Mandalorian go and take sanctuary on a very unknown planet. Here he goes and stays in a small village, and he meets Cara Dune, so we finally get another female character come into this, and it's great to see another character who is, from what we've seen so far, essentially the Mandalorian's equal and someone that he can bounce off and spar with. It's a pretty great scene where he actually meets her, how he spies her out in the cantina and then she sneaks out when he's not looking. He hunts her down, she ambushes them, and they have a quick fight, and they seem pretty evenly matched. Cara Dune is an ex-rebel Spec Ops soldier, so she's pretty tough. So some great chemistry with the Mandalorian goes on there. In this episode, we see a much more human side of the Mandalorian than what we have seen in the previous episodes. There's a woman in the village who was interested in him, and we learn a little bit about the Mandalorian culture, about why they can't take the helmet off. If he takes it off in front of another person, he's not able to put it back on again. He dishonors himself, he dishonors his clan, and because he was taken in by his clan when his family was killed, he really feels a strong loyalty and a strong connection to this clan. And we begin to understand why he holds so true to his virtues and beliefs and values, and why he refuses to take his helmet off in public and let people see what he looks like. Whether or not this means he won't take it off before the end of the episode, if he comes to some other realization, we'll have to wait and see. But it adds a depth to the character which I actually really like. In this episode, we really get the Western vibe. The village comes under attack by an invading force and an AT-ST. So it's down to Cara, the Mandalorian, and a few villagers, only of one who's ever shot a gun before, to defend the village from them all. Now, originally they try to hire the Mandalorian and give him money, but he refuses to take the money in the end, and he uses the money to hire Cara Dune. And it's actually, well, he goes to the village because it's a secluded village and he can protect the child there. But when he gets to the village, we actually see that he genuinely cares about the people and wants to protect the people. So there's something about the Mandalorian. He's much more humane than a lot of other bounty hunters which we've seen in the Star Wars universe, which I think is great, especially if you're doing a TV show on him. There has to be a bit more depth into the character than just doing jobs for money and going to the next job and going to the next job. There has to be something in the Mandalorian that we can invest and relate in to keep people coming back to watch the show again and again. Now, this fight scene is actually pretty awesome. That's very Battle of Endor-like-esque, where you see essentially these villagers, these untrained villagers, and a single specially trained soldier and a bounty hunter take on an AT-ST, where there's a much weaker force which are undermanned and underarmed versus a superior force which have weapons and guns and armoured vehicles. And it shows the resourcefulness of the Mandalorian, just how he goes about planning the attack, well, more of the defense of the village. He goes in, he attacks the encampment of these aliens to lure them to follow him. And we see this AT-ST in a way which we've never seen it before, like essentially this predator with these red lights coming from the windows. We've always seen AT-STs in Star Wars. They've always been fairly effective vehicles, but none of them have been particularly powerful. You see Chewie take over one at the Battle of Endor, and you see them get smashed by trees and all sorts of things, but you've never seen an AT-ST quite like as being quite a serious predator as it is in this episode of The Mandalorian, which is actually pretty awesome to see how strong the AT-ST can be and see how the Empire actually use these vehicles and all these weapons and stuff to actually cower the people into submission and actually rule the galaxy with the Iron Fist that they did. So it's actually quite interesting to watch. They do manage to defeat it by luring it into a trap where it falls over, and then they throw a grenade in the top hatch and it goes kablamo, which is awesome. Always good having explosions in Star Wars. But this episode felt a lot more grounded. It felt a lot more intimate. There weren't as many great big gunfights as like there were in episode 3. There wasn't the full-on... Episode 3 honestly felt like a massive action-packed episode where there was a gunfight throughout the whole episode. Episode 4, Chapter 4 was much more... It felt like a much more intimate and a much more purposeful fight than anything which was seen in The Mandalorian before. That they weren't just fighting for a single child, but they were fighting for the defense of the whole village. With all that being said, I really enjoyed it, but I still prefer the action and the gunfighting from Chapter 3. I think it will be very hard for The Mandalorian to actually top what has been happening in Chapter 3 with all the action and all the gunfights. But in this one, we see a good bit of character development. I know Cara Dune will be back in episodes 7 and 8, so I'm interested to see the off-play with the Mandalorian on that. It was a bit of a shame she doesn't tag along with him to fight and defend for the child for the rest of the series, but at least we'll get to see her again. It's always good to have a couple more characters for the Mandalorian to bounce off, and some characters we can get to know more about throughout the series, rather than just having it focus solely on the Mandalorian. If there was one thing I could change about it, I love the show, don't get me wrong, it would be that he could have at least one other character or one other person with him who he could talk to, so we could actually see a little bit more about the Mandalorian and develop his character a little bit more than just episode to episode, where they can just drag it out over the whole series, if you understand what I'm saying. The single episode characters are good, but I think there's some value in having a relationship form with particular characters over a longer period of time, which can go into a depth which they can't do in a single episode. But anyway, I hope you enjoy my thoughts on the Mandalorian episode. I keep saying episode. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on the Mandalorian Chapter 4. Please like, subscribe, watch my other videos. But otherwise, guys, until the next video, take care.